Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about percent change, and that means either a percent increase or a percent decrease. Now, when we talk about percent change, the reason we talk about it is to get an idea if something has changed a lot. So if something, only increases by, so let's say the number of students on our team increased by 5, that doesn't seem like a lot, but what percent of the original is that? So if that's a 20% increase, 20% is a large increase. And we usually use percent change in things like prices and investments and things like that to get an idea of what kind of change it is. Just talking about the difference, a subtraction, usually isn't sufficient enough to get an idea if it's a large change or not. So we're still going to use our is over of. Our proportion is over of equals percent out of 100. Okay? Now I want you to think about a couple of things first before I give you any rule or anything. So the first thing I want you to think about is, nope, not new. I want you to think about something that we start with. So our original. Okay? Our original amount of something, and we're going to compare it to our new amount of something, and then we're going to figure out what kind of percent changes that. So your notes should look like mine. Set up a little 3 columns to get an idea of the differences. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I changed the screen a little bit to give myself more room. But let's say I started in my original column here with 10 blocks. And then I tell you that we have a new amount of blocks, which is 15. So this column has 15 blocks. So we know that there was an increase, okay, by 5 blocks. So when I my percent change here, I know that I went from 10 blocks, which was my original, plus 5 more to get my 15. So what percent is that? So remember how I tell you when we're learning new things, we try and start with easy examples. So this is fairly easy once I start explaining it. So this 10 is the original. Okay? So this 5 is my increase. I want to know this 5 is what percent. So if I had these 10 blocks here and I increased by 5, that means I increased it by half. And I know that 5 is 50% of 10. Okay? So this increase of 5 blocks right here, 5 extra blocks from my original 10 is 50%. So this percent change is a plus 50%. So if something increases by 50%, that means it's increasing by half of the original amount, which is quite a lot. So I'm just going to continue on a new screen. Let me just continue my columns here. So I had original, new. Why isn't this working? Here we go. And percent change. And my pens here are not working, and I'm not sure why. The only thing about these videos is my handwriting is not as neat. Okay, so I have my original. So let's say we're going to pick easy numbers, remember? So let's say my original is 20. Now I don't really want to draw 20 blocks, so you're going to have to picture it yourself. Now let's say my new one has 30 blocks. Okay, so what percent change is that? Well, we know that it went from 20 to 30, and that means it's an increase of 10. So that change is 20, which is the original, plus the 10. So this is what I want to figure out. 10 is what percent of 20. That's how I'm going to figure out my percent. So if I do that math here, so I know 10 is, so that's my is, what percent of, so my of is 20. Well, you know that if the original is 20 and I add 10, 10 is half of 20. So when I set up my proportion and I solve, x is going to be 50%. And since it's an increase, it's a 50% increase. All right, so let's look at a more complicated example. I want you to write this down, and I'm going to walk you through it. So the price of a large coffee went from $2.25 to $2.40. What is the percent change? So when we think about this, we know our original was $2.25. Our new price is $2.40. So our percent change is going to be a positive. It's going to be an increase. So I'm setting this up. We know it's going to be a percent increase. The only thing I'm missing is what the percent is. Now that might not seem like a lot, but maybe it is. So how do we figure this out? Well, we know it went up. So how much did it go up by? Well, it used to be $2.25, but it went up by, so 25, 35, 40, it went up by 15 cents. So 15 cents, not a big deal, right? Well, is it? So this 15 cents, we want to know 15 cents is what percent of our original, which was $2.25. So ladies and gentlemen, what I'm going to ask you to do as part of your homework is answer this question right here. So your notebook should have the example with the words. So this example right here, why is my pen not working again? Oh, this pen. So these words right here is your example, okay? And I want you to write that down and write the notes that I've given you so far. And I want you to answer this question I've outlined in green. 15 cents is what percent of $2.25? That is going to give you the percent change. And I'm curious, is that 15 cents a large percent or a small percent increase? And that's what I'm going to be checking when we go over the homework tomorrow.